I'm Alex, and I have 3 abnormally strong builds for you in Soulstone Survivors. And hey, if you're new here, hit subscribe. The first one you can put together the earliest using the Barbarian class, but you do need to have prestiged him up enough to where you can use the alternate weapon that gives the double slash attack. You also need to have unlocked the Scent of Blood and Savage Strike skills as well. This build revolves around inflicting massive amounts of status effects per second, especially bleed, and exploiting those for huge bursts of damage. Here's the setup. You start with the double slash skill, which hits twice in front of you, applying bleed. Then Flurry throws a ton of daggers really quickly, which inflicts more stacks of bleed. Flurry is also the key to many status effect builds overall, since it rapidly builds up multiple stacks of status effects you'll be gaining through leveling up, like Poison, Fragility, and Burn, and of course that bleed. Then there's Subdue, which is a single strike in front of you which deals extra damage per stack of bleed or hemorrhage on the target, which also inflicts Fragility, which makes them more susceptible to damage. Scent of Blood is a passive buff which increases your cast frequency with extra cast speed granted for each stack of bleed or hemorrhage that is applied near you. Bloodlust is another passive buff which increases your movement speed and cast frequency even further. And Savage Strike is a high damage single hit that is divided up equally between all targets. This is going to be your main boss killer along with Subdue and all those status effects. Since the other upgrade options you'll be gaining on your character mid-run are a lot less predictable, I'm going to do this by priority of what you should focus on the most. First, cast speed, because you want to inflict as many status effects as you can and also be popping your damage skills as fast as possible. Then get all of the status effects except for slow, or you can just banish that one. Then raw damage, which is pretty straightforward. Then periodically, you'll want to increase the size of your attacks because the melee strikes in this build are pretty short in reach. Then get some critical chance because you can get an upgrade to drop which inflicts bleed every time you crit hit. Then last, maybe toss in some critical damage or something defensive if you struggle with survivability. This build has somewhat of a slow start, but in the mid to late game it really becomes an impressive combination of degen and raw damage. Overall, this build is effective at taking down groups of regular enemies pretty easily, but for bosses, as soon as you start piling on those status effects, you will all of a sudden see those health bars evaporate with those accumulating damage modifiers. For the next build, you'll have to unlock the Hound Master, which you get for beating a map under 25 minutes, which you'll likely do in the first few runs. You also need to have acquired their alternate weapon that gives the buckshot starting skill, and have prestiged the Hound Master up high enough to unlock the Weakening Grenade. This build is primarily focused on melting the entire screen and your GPU with blast damage and status effects which multiply your DPS. Here's the setup for this one. The starting ability Buckshot hits in a cone in front of you and inflicts Fragility, which increases damage on the target for a few seconds. Then Napalm Blast does a large explosion which leaves burning fire on the ground, inflicting the melting effect, reducing armor to anyone hit by it. Frag Shot fires an arrow which detonates in all directions, inflicting even more fragility. Weakening Grenade hits in an area, applying the weakness effect, further increasing the damage and status effect potency on the target. Then Power Blast hits in a large area in front of you, inflicting Disoriented, which makes enemies more susceptible to critical hits. And Shrapnel Shot, which shoots multiple projectiles out which detonate into smaller explosions. For upgrades to focus, I recommend aiming for cast speed first. The more fire and explosions, the better. Then just some raw damage. Followed by Area Modifier to expand the area of explosives and that lingering fire. throw on some damaging status effects from time to time because your lingering napalm blast will apply all of those status effects to anyone who enters its area. And last, you can throw some into critical chance or some defensive stats. When you combine all of those main skills together, you'll be throwing damage multipliers onto damage multipliers and be nuking everything in flames. Bosses on the higher difficulties are going to be the main hurdle of your progression, and this is another one that can delete their health gauges rapidly once you have multiple stacks of fragility, melting, weakness, and disoriented on them. And for the last one, this is a late game build, so you'll need to have unlocked the Necromancer, which you get for completing the Dungeon of Despair map with up to a Curse tier of 3. You'll then need to prestige the class up to level 50 to gain access to its skeletal mages, skeletal archers, and putrid hound skills. This is going to build you a pure passive Minion Master class. Here's the setup, and it all starts with the Skeletal Warrior skill, which summons close-range shadow creatures that seek out targets on their own. Then the Skeletal Mage, which summons a ranged attacker that will hang out near you. Same goes for the Skeletal Archers. Then the Putrid Hound will also seek out enemies on its own, while inflicting weakness on them, which increases the damage they receive. The Chaos Golem will venture off to nearby enemies as well, and slam down in a small AoE. And then Bloodlust, which increases the movement speed and cast frequency of yourself, but also applies that same bonus to any minions near you. For upgrades to focus, you definitely need to aim for any that increase the max unit count for any of your summons. Then just some pure damage because that does apply to all of your minions. Some cast frequency to make sure you keep your army stocked up after they die, and you also can frequently apply that Bloodlust buff. Status ailments are also useful because all of your units will apply every effect your character has a chance to inflict. And last, some critical chance and critical damage to increase the DPS of all of your minions. Since your minions are spreading out the damage all over the map for you, this is a really effective way to beat maps in a shorter amount of time. So those were just 3 of my personal favorite builds I've put together so far in Soulstone Survivors. Now let me know down in the comments the best screen melting builds you invent, and make sure to leave the class, the 6 abilities you use, and the upgrades you focus on them, and I might just go try it out if it sounds ridiculous. Thanks for checking this out and for watching to the very end. I'm Alex, and I'll see you later.